Hello everyone and welcome to Moneycontrol. We are back with another episode of Tech Up, a weekly podcast for the latest in gadgets, personal technology, AI and everything in between. I am your host Aabhas Sharma and today we are recapping WWDC 2025, Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, where the focus was fluid, the numbers were unified and AI wasn't the headline act but certainly made a fleeting appearance. There's a whole new visual identity across Apple's platforms, deep iPadOS enhancements and updates to everything from the Mac to the Vision Pro. So let's dive in. The first thing which Apple did or announced was it's aligning its software under a single version number, which is 26. Now that may be confusing as right now we are in 2025, but going forward iOS or iPadOS or macOS will have the 26 number attached to them. That is because Apple does roll out the latest versions of its software updates sometime closer to September or October, which means that most people will be using it more in the year 2026 rather than 2025, which is why iOS 26, iPadOS 26, macOS 26, watchOS 26, tvOS 26 and visionOS 26. It is a subtle signal that Apple's platforms are converging even deep into a deeper ecosystem. But the real visual story here is something called liquid glass. And no, it's not a new iPhone finish. This is a massive design overhaul, arguably the biggest since iOS 7. Every interface now leans into transparency, motion and light. Think of a glass-like UI layer that shimmers and shifts slightly as you move your device. Elements feel far more alive, the tiles are more interactive, the buttons and effects are all respond to your environment and actions. Widgets also now animate softly, notifications glide in with depth, even the lock screen clock adapts to its look based on the wallpaper, lighting and time of the day. It is dramatic, yes, but also cohesive. And this liquid glass aesthetic runs everywhere, from your Mac desktop to your Apple Watch screen to the Apple TV UI. I have been using the iOS beta version of iOS 26 and let me just say that it's not the easiest thing to like. It will take time to get used to because there is certainly a legibility problem reading text, at least the notifications is a bit difficult on the new user interface. However, let's talk about AI, or rather Apple Intelligence. Last year, Apple officially joined the AI race, but with its own branding and its own privacy first twist. It was expected that Apple will double down on AI, but it was rather underwhelming, especially when compared to what Google showcased a few weeks back at I/O 2025. Apple Intelligence wasn't the big talking point, but had some useful announcements. For example, Apple is now bringing live translation for voice and text, including real-time translated phone calls. Visual intelligence, which can identify and suggest content from screenshots or say images. This what Apple showcased felt a lot more closer to Google's Circle to Search. Apple once again doubled down on Genmoji, the AI generated emojis tailored to your descriptions or reactions. Image Playground, where users can create AI generated images in different styles directly inside apps like Messages, now get the support of ChatGPT. Let me bring in my colleague Ankita Chakravari to talk more about what Apple did or did not do when it comes to AI. Hi Ankita, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Abbas.
So, Apple has always been, if I can say, a slightly conservative, privacy oriented, doesn't want to make rush into things. Do you think it is has been a deliberate ploy that at WWDC 2025, Apple didn't talk too much about, say, Apple Intelligence? Or is it a case of Apple being genuinely falling short or falling behind the likes of Google Gemini.
I think Apple's decision to brand its AI as private, contextual, and personal is a smart way to play to its strengths, but it also suggests that the company is still behind in the AI race. While rivals like Google and Microsoft are rolling out flashy chatbots and powerful generative tools, Apple is taking a more quieter and controlled approach. So
Right.
instead of launching an all-purpose assistant, it's adding features that work quietly in the background. So I think the approach fits perfectly with Apple's, long standing focus on privacy and seamless experience. But by keeping most of his, AI processing on device and tightly integrating it with the apps, Apple also avoids the issues that other companies face, like
Right.
hallucinations and data privacy concerns and unpredictable chatbot behavior. However, I feel at the same time, the strategy allows Apple to enter the AI conversation without competing directly with, more mature models like Gemini and Chat GPT. So I also think it's a clever way to differentiate, but also a sign of caution. Apple,
Right.
I feel, is clearly building its foundation in AI and choosing to walk before it runs. So whether that pays off depends on how well users respond.
Right. Right. Right.
Uh, so, while we're talking about it, I also have a
Yeah.
question for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, WWC just happened, and we did not see Apple, lean into Apple Intelligence too much. So,
Right.
while Google I/O gave us Gemini powered everything, so do you think are Apple's subtle integrations, enough to compete with the showy LLM heavy direction Google is heading in?
See, while I kind of disagree on that, because Google I/O was about everything which Google does. So it's search, it's YouTube, it's across its all apps and services. So it is rather a case of comparing apples with oranges. But yeah, you're right in that Apple has been playing it smart. There has been this whole delay in the Siri, much anticipated, much more intelligent Siri rollout, which has once again been deferred. So Apple doesn't want to burn its hands, because we have seen Google, when Gemini was called Bard, it had a botched up, a lot of things were botched up in the initial days of Bard. So Apple is taking it slow and playing slow, and comparing it to Google's overall, I think, is kind of unfair. Having said that, I do feel that what Google has done with Gemini on Android is streets ahead of what Apple has so far showcased us, or we have used on Apple Intelligence. Apple Intelligence still feels like a work in progress, still scratching the surface, still not delivering, a lot of value when compared to what Gemini can do on Android phones, and more so what it does on Pixel phones. So yeah, Apple has to catch up, has to step up its efforts if it wants to remain in the AI conversation on smartphones at least. Yeah,
Right, right.
yeah. All right, Ankita. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you,
So
Abbas.
Apple Intelligence also made its way to the Apple Watch with Workout Buddy, which is the first of its kind workout experience. On Apple Watch, it is powered by Apple Intelligence and can incorporate a user's workout data and fitness history to generate personalized motivational insights during their fitness sessions. Shortcuts are also now more powerful and intelligent than ever. Users can tap into intelligent actions and get a whole new set of shortcuts which are enabled by Apple Intelligence. Users will see dedicated actions for features like summarizing text with writing tools or creating images with the image playground. There was also one of the more practical features which Apple showcased, which was call screening and hold assist. These use Apple Intelligence to screen unknown calls or wait on hold for you. By the way, that's just straight out of Google's Pixel playbook, as Pixel has had this feature for quite a while. Moving on from Apple Intelligence to what iOS brings to the iPhone. iOS 26, as I said, I have been using it in beta for the last 1.5 days, and it's certainly more refined in terms of features but revolutionary in terms of the look. Liquid glass in place, the system looks sleeker than ever, but there is a lot of utility with Apple, why Apple has added the gloss. Apple has also introduced for the first time a new centralized games app which helps you track achievements, friend invites, and even cloud syncs across devices. Messages also gets some serious upgrades. For example, you can now add polls and group chats, customizable backgrounds, and for users in the US or Europe, there is integrated Apple Cash for quick payments. Also, much like WhatsApp, users can now see typing indicators in group threads. Apple's CarPlay has also gotten smarter with iOS 26, as now it can suggest smarter route suggestion and deeper Apple Music integration, including real-time lyric translation. Apple Maps, which is rather much maligned but frankly slightly underrated, can now show places you have visited and offers smarter routing based on your habits. Again, for the users in US, Apple Wallet users can see installment payment plans and loyalty rewards directly from their cards. Joining me right now is Shaurya, who has been using iPadOS, and before we go to iPadOS, he's also been using the new Games app. Welcome to the show, Shaurya.
Hi, Aabhas.
So tell me, the Games app. I have barely tried it. What does the Games app actually bring to the iPhone? And I believe it is also on the iPad. And you have been using the beta version of the iPadOS. So let's start with the Games app. What does it actually bring?
So, lots of iPhone user use the iPhone to play games on their devices, right? And iOS have, always missed out on having a centralized gaming center. There used to be one, but this games app is a little bit different because it brings all the gaming features, all the gaming, multiplayer features and everything into one consolidated space. For instance, there is a personalized home tab that shows the recent activity, new content, and game recommendation based on what kind of games users want to play. Then moving on, there is a second thing that is very important is a library tab, which consolidates all your games that are installed on your iPhone or iPad. All right. Then there is a controller support. With the Games app, you can connect the controller and access all the settings and make all the changes right from the Games app. Then Play Together is a nice feature where it allows you to socialize with other players, other gaming friends of yours, and play with them when and where you want to.
Okay.
Another
Is
very crucial feature is the integration of Apple Arcade. Now, Apple has been pushing Apple Arcade like from a long time and keeps adding new games every now and then. And having the core integration of it within the Games app is a very nice and nifty feature to have for iPhone and iPad users.
Right, I agree. Bringing Apple Arcade to the Games app is a smart move, because earlier on the App Store it was always difficult to find Apple Arcade or look for what games are actually there. Let me ask you: is there something like this on Android? Is there an Android counterpart for the Games app?
So, if you will look from the core Android perspective, there is nothing as such. But every other manufacturer, like be it Samsung, be it OnePlus or other brands, have a dedicated game center on their phone. They offer similar kind of integration, and on Android, considering it's much more customizable, they also offer several other setting features like to monitor FPS on the go or pause notifications or bypass charging, etc., etc. But it is there, and now Apple has joined the race as well.
Okay, sure. Just hang on. We'll come back to you to talk more about iPadOS. So iPadOS is now called iPadOS 2026, iPadOS 26, which finally may be stepping out of its MacBook shadow. iPadOS 26 is the most Mac-like iPad update ever. Why? Because there is a brand new windowing system that supports flick to title, grab to resize, and even expose style multitasking previews. The preview app from macOS comes to the iPad and makes its debut alongside a revamped Files app that supports column views, folders on desktop, and drag and drop from everywhere. Apple has also added new pro level audio and video tools aimed squarely at the content creators. And yes, while Xcode for iPad is still a dream, at least you can use powerful shortcuts and automation to simulate pro workflows. Apple is clearly positioning the iPad as a device that can adapt tablet when you want it, PC when you need it. And this year it actually delivers on that idea more than ever. Coming back, Shaurya, you have been beta testing iPadOS 2020, iPadOS 26. What has been your experience? Is it becoming more Mac-like? Can the iPad be a suitable replacement for, say, if not a MacBook, then for, say, a Windows PC?
Well, Abbas, there is one thing that I want to highlight about the new iPad OS 26 is, most people are talking about how you can easily resize a window with iOS 26, right? But if you look at the iPad OS 18, when Stage Manager was turned on, you could always do that, right? There was this window resizing option earlier as well, and multitasking was there before as well. But what people are not talking about the new iPad OS 26 being so-called much closer to the Mac experience is couple of other features that Apple has added. For instance, you now have a preview app. So one feature that Mac people love is pressing that spacebar button to get the preview of an image or preview of a document or any other thing on the Mac, right? That same level of preview app and feature has been added to iPad. That brings it closer to MacBook. The second thing is upgraded Files app. As you spoke before, the Files app is now more practical and has more options and resizable columns, list views, and now you can set default app for a particular file type, which is something straight out of MacBook.
Right.
Another thing which is very important for the multitasking and so-called Mac replacement kind of feature is background tasks. People are not talking about this, but this is a very important feature for a PC or a laptop or a MacBook. When we use things, we leave our task in the background. For instance, I'm rendering a video and I want to export it, and at the same time I want to watch a video or browse something on the internet or look for titles, caption, work around on things. The background task feature makes iPad like a very good Mac replacement, if not the Mac replacement at all. Apart from that, there are several other features that Apple has added, right? The added calculator app, 3D graphics, maps, notes, and everything has been improved. And on top of all these things, you now have a dedicated uh, taskbar kind of thing where you can click on files, edit, access other menus and options related to a particular app, just like you do on Mac. So yes, the iPad OS 26 does feel like it is getting closer to a MacBook, but it is still, as you said, a tablet when you want, a laptop when you need.
Right, right. Well, it was high time Apple actually fixed the Files app on iPad, because it was quite a mess, and it's good to see that with the iPad OS 26 it has made that difference. Thank you so much, Shaurya, for joining us on the show. We'll move on to macOS Tahoe, which is macOS 26, which also gets the liquid glass treatment, but it's again more than just looks. Apple has added a customizable control center with modular widgets and toggles. There are color-coded folders, making desktop organization slightly less of a mess. Live activities come to the Mac in the menu bar, so you can track timers, rides, or food delivery right from the top of your screen. There is also an upgraded Spotlight, which is now capable of summarizing documents, surfacing media, and understanding more natural queries. Shortcuts also get better on Mac, which are powered by Apple Intelligence. It's still macOS, and we expect it to be fast, stable, but it has now got smarter helpers and certainly has a lot more visual flair. What about the other OSs? Apple didn't ignore them. WatchOS 26 introduces new gestures like wrist flick For hands-free control, alerts are now more context-aware, and workouts are also redesigned with clearer feedback and post-workout summaries. tvOS 26 meanwhile turns your Apple TV into a karaoke machine with integrated lyrics, and FaceTime on TV is also getting a full redesign with better camera framing and reaction support. Vision OS 26, which is the operating system for Vision Pro, which is still not available in India, pushes spatial computing even further. There are now persistent spatial widgets, the personas which have been improved to look more natural in FaceTime. There is an all-new eyes mode for on-device privacy, and there is support for PlayStation VR 2 Sense controller, which is actually a huge win for immersive gaming. This at WWDC 25, Apple has been laying the foundation for spatial computing to stop being a demo and actually start being a daily device for people to use. That's a wrap for this week's Tech Up episode. We've got a new design language from Apple, a new smarter Siri, and an iPad that finally might be free of its training wheels and take on a MacBook. However, AI still remains the wild card, and Apple's play still seems like just the beginning. Till next time, stay curious, stay kind. Thanks for watching.